Well, hello, friends. Welcome to Unit 4 of our Business Principles class. And this is how we finish the course up with personal finance. It's all about you and your money. So I think and I hope that you will enjoy this section. And man, do we need this more than ever with certainly the environment that we are in today. So let's take a look at our intro up. This will be the first of a series of videos for personal finance. Now, not to leave you in the lurch here, I do teach more classes for those who've enjoyed what we had this short semester. In the fall, I will teach Marketing 1311, and that's a requirement for most business degrees. I'll teach it Monday, Wednesday, 11 to 12:20 p.m. and Tuesday, Thursdays in the evening, 6:30 to 7:50. This is a pure blended class on the night course, which means we just meet on Tuesdays. Okay, that's great. And then Thursday, you have other things to do, exams, projects, etc. So you have that night free. And then again, on the Wednesday here, this class, it is a quasi-blend as we don't meet every Wednesday. And I will teach this class. If you like what we're going to learn here in personal finance, I'm going to teach that one. I usually teach it online. And now I'm going to teach it lecture as well. So Monday, Wednesdays, 9:30 to 10:50 a.m. Again, this will be a blend where we will mainly just meet on Mondays, and Wednesdays we will have our assignments and discussion boards or anything else will be on, or the videos I'll put out for you for Wednesday. So there we go. Love to have you back in the class. Personal finance, my friends. Who works hard for the money? I think all of us do. All of us are working very hard, harder than we ever have in our lives, more than likely. The American worker is the most productive worker in the world. We have doubled our output to maybe 2.5 times in the last 30 years. So we all work, and we'd like to have some more money, right, wouldn't we? Absolutely. That's why you're in college. That's what you're doing to get your degree. And better than that, we also need to manage our money better. Now, when it comes, we like the first two. This third one is more of, oh man, that's a lot of hard work, and some of us, most of us in America, don't have a great positive relationship with money. We just don't have enough of it. So, is it expensive to live? Absolutely. If I were to ask you in the class, how many of you have your own apartment? Probably a good number would raise your hands. And one point I asked who pays who pays around $650 a month for your rent, and I got laughed at because I was using some old numbers. Most of you, if you have your own apartment, are paying close to at least $1,000, and that's not maybe a penthouse in uptown Dallas or on 7th Street in Fort Worth. That's just a normal apartment. And some students are paying $1,500 a month for a nicer apartment and maybe 2 bedrooms. So it is expensive. That's just rent. We got to figure everything else out. We got a car payment, we need food, we need insurance, we need some savings. Yeah, absolutely we do. How many hours are there in a month? It's the same for everybody. There's 722 hours a month. There's 168 hours a week. So be careful when you say, I just don't have time to do that assignment, Mr. Saleh. I'm kind of too busy. Well, everyone has the same amount of hours. That's how many hours you get in a week. Now, let's say we sleep, we go to school, we go to work. There's still time left over to do the things that we like, and that's usually about close to 40 hours a week of our own time. Maybe that's binge watching every TV show that we like. I don't know what you're binging lately, but I hope it's good. I hope you're healthy, and safe right now. If I was to ask how many hours were devoted to planning our finances, not just this class, but just across America, we would get some very strange answers, wouldn't we? And, to know what your bank account balances are, your credit card balances, to the penny, your car loan, if you had to pay it off tomorrow, and et cetera, et cetera. Again, your bank account, how much you have in it right now. We have a formula in accounting. Of course, the accounting equation is assets equals, or owner's equity is your assets minus your liabilities. Well, your net worth is your asset minus your liabilities. It's kind of what you own minus what you owe. And 70% of Americans, and friends, we're seeing that right now in this horrid time of pandemics and people losing their jobs and not having any money to pay basic bills. 20 minutes a month. Most Americans just don't want to know the reality of their financial situation. Now, of the information that we're going to go over in this nice unit, I've taken it from a variety of sources. So you may have seen some of this. Larry Burkett was the president of Christian Financial Concepts for a very long time. He passed away probably 10 years ago. He did a tremendous amount in the world of personal finance, which led to Dave Ramsey's topics, Susie Orman's topics. I go from MSN Money, uh, Building Good Habits from James Clear. So I'm taking a lot of information from a lot of different sources. So just so we know that I'm not making it up as we go along. We started the class with saying what the numbers look like, okay? The length of money. Now, this was of the amount of debt that the United States owes, which is about $25 trillion. And if I did stacks on stacks, all right, $1 bills and just stack them literally horizontally, not vertically, $1 million goes 400 feet in the air. And the $1 billion goes 8 miles in the air. There's a dramatic difference when we say, hey man, million to a billion. It's geometric progression. And of course, the $1 trillion goes even more. So there's our $23 trillion of debt, plus that debt. And of course, with what we did with the stimulus bill, we've taken out another $2.5 trillion. So this number's going up and up and up. And we talked about this from the very get-go of our course. Who owns this debt? Well, we own most of it. So, don't worry so much. Governments, pensions, China and Japan are our largest foreign debtors, so to speak. I'm sorry, they're our largest foreign lenders. We're the debtor. And they own somewhere between $4 and $5 trillion worth of that debt. It's only your money. There we are. The $1 trillion that we have basically is 200,000 miles of debt. Now I'm going to get out my calculator real quick here, and we're going to do what 27 would look like. $27 trillion times 8,000. So absolutely, we are now just about 220 miles of debt with a dollar bill stacked on each other. I always wondered, when would we reach the moon? The moon at its closest orbit to the Earth is about 200 to 220,000 miles in the month of November. During the other times of the month, it's about 240,000 miles. So we are right at the moon right now with the debt. We could reach it by stacking $1 bills all the way up. It would reach the moon. Unprecedented times, my friends. Unprecedented in everything. So, wow, the distribution of wealth. Now, we do have a big debt, but as far as private wealth, and we look in private assets, not corporate assets, but what private individuals own, it's right about 55 to 60 trillion dollars. So, if you've ever heard of the game of bridge, it's a card game. You always kept what was called a trump card. Oh God, that's weird. Our president right now, same name. But you kept this. Let's just say your ace in the hole. This is our ace in the hole, my friends. It is the 55 to 60 trillion dollars. So when you look at 25 or 27 trillion that we owe publicly, we do have enough private wealth to back it up. But who owns it? How much of that is yours? Well, you've heard of the top 1%. Okay? We need to take a look at these numbers. This is a group of people, all right, own 40% of the wealth in the United States. So, and now I'm just doing a couple of calculations on my calculator. Times 1%. That's about 800,000 families. If we divide 330 million by 4, we get a number. I do 1% of that. They own $24 trillion. That's a very small number, 800,000 versus 330 million. They own it. They control it. Keep that number in mind. Now, we go to the next 4%, okay? which is, 21% of the wealth that they own. So this group owns $13 trillion. If we round out the top 10, the next 5% owns $6 trillion of wealth. Well, when we're dealing with percentages, we are very close to this number right here, and we have not gotten to 90% of Americans. So the top 10% control $43 trillion, 71% of the wealth in this great nation. Not in that group. Nope. Friends, to be in this group right in here, your net worth, well, there you go. Your net worth needs to be somewhere around $25 million of personal net worth. I know a couple of you are in that, but as a college professor, we got to keep going down. I mean, way down. All right. The next 10%, 80 to 89%, they own about 12%, which is 7.2 trillion. You're saying, well, what do you mean? Is this money in their pockets? This is houses, this is investments, this is IRAs, this is 401ks, retirement plans. This is buildings and crazy amounts of wealth. For most working people, this is your house and your retirement plan and some savings that you have. Next 10%. We go to 60 to 79%. So that's really that's really the next 20%. I've kind of gone from 10 down to 20. Okay, about 7. So that's the numbers are getting bigger of people, but the amount is getting lower or the same. Another 7 trillion. But again, this is 20 more. The next top 20. This is 60% and below right here. Wow, almost nothing. About 3 trillion between this number and then the bottom 40% of Americans. All right, so we are going to take my numbers again, and we're going to go 333 million. We're going to go times 40%. That is 140 million Americans. Okay, I got good math here. I could have done that in my head, but I didn't. Own absolutely nothing, which means they're going to have to be on a lot of government programs just to make it by. 29% of the wealth is what 90% of the people have. 71% is what 10% have, but it's really right in here. The top 5% of Americans own 61% of the wealth. There's just a finite amount. There's only, I can't go over 100 here. That's... maybe this is some of the reasoning we need to look at personal finance. Not maybe, it's definitely. But we're seeing some of the problems in the economy today. Let's keep fleshing this out. There you go. There's your Ferrari, your Lamborghini, your Audi, was that an A6, and everything else. 4 million families in that top percent right there, controlling $36 trillion worth of wealth. Again, somewhere you've got to be considered in the 1%, the minimum net wealth you have, it must be 40 million. To be in that next 4%, you got to have at least 20 million. I mean, that's just the minimums. So what do they have access to? Everything. Power, influence, and more wealth. They can lobby Congress, they can get their tax rate down, which we have seen in Unit 1. And of course, that just creates what? More wealth, more wealth. That's why, as we're seeing right now, the $2+ trillion stimulus package, major corporations are getting the bulk of that amount, which is owned by what? This group right in here. That wealth will always be protected. There's just nothing you can do about it. Well, what about that working middle class? All right, the 50% of American families, the middle America, which has always made this country so great and so thriving. 38%. $20 trillion, but we're talking about 150+ million people. So the net wealth per family is 50 grand, which is basically, again, that's your assets minus liabilities. This is more than likely the value of a house and some retirement programs. So we have a lot more limited access to political power, to influence, to overall power, and unfortunately, this is kind of how the financing is done for our lifestyles, is through different vehicles of credit and debt. What do you think of that right there? Jeff, McKinsey, kind of split down the middle now, so that's top 3. Jeff, McKinsey, and Bill. Billy, you're the richest dude in the world. We just need to get you a hairstylist. That's all we have to do, man. 60%, these three people own more than 60% of every American put together. We could extend that. We could go out to the world. These three people, because she got half and she deserved it, own more than 50% of the wealth of the entire world, which means they are richer than probably 5 billion people in the world. Just adding their wealth up. Is that sustainable? Friends, great that they made their money, but they had a lot of help along the way too from the government. Something's got to change here, my friends. Well, remember that 40% of everyone else? There's another $133 million, 0.2%, which that's not 2%, it's 0.2, which means it's 0.2%. Nothing. No wealth, no access, no influence. And unfortunately, because of the situation, lots of government assistance. They're just going to have that. We've set a system up that is imploding on ourselves, and nobody wants to provide the leadership to get us out of it. This is interesting. The top 1%. We need wealthy people in our economy. I am not saying we don't. All right. In 1970, the top 1% owned and controlled about 9% of the total wealth in the United States. Okay? That means they were very wealthy people and they could invest back in capital, but the bottom 40% was making it pretty well. I mean, they had extra money, they had a job, they could, they weren't in such financial insecurities. Today, the top 1% own more than the bottom 80% of American families. That $24 trillion is more than 80% of everyone's wealth in the United States. So basically all we did, we took out some of those very top tier earners. That means the $24 trillion, the bottom 80% can only control $17 trillion. And again, we're talking 250 million people versus a little over 800,000. Crazy. 1995, and again, we went back to 1970, but now we're in 1995 here. So some of you were born in that era. That was the middle of the Clinton years, and hey, I was a young man at that time, just married, and I didn't have the greatest of jobs. I was still in my landscape business. I mean, I was working hard. I mean, I loved it, but I was working hard. But I always seemed to do okay. I always seemed to have money at the end, and we always be able to travel and had pretty much and things were good. And I'm wondering, why did it change so quickly? The top 1% of wealth equal the bottom 50%, which means the bottom 50% of people in the United States had as much wealth as the top 1%. So that still means we had very wealthy people. We are now seeing billionaires quite a bit. But people, even the bottom amount of people, are still doing well. There's still some equity in income and group. It's about 20% for each. They had about 20%, we had about 20%. Since 2005, now this was after the effect of Bush tax cuts, it has been 40%. I'm just going to go ahead and give it a 2% just because I don't want to be so negative for that bottom 50 right there. Is it sustainable? I'm not trying to be political. I'm just a realist. We cannot continue this because look what we're in right now. Sustainability. We're in the coronavirus pandemic. Unfortunately, we should not be surprised. This is the 5th pandemic we have seen since the year 2000, and each one has been different, and we know how fast it can spread. And now we have missed the boat, unfortunately, to really contain this virus on the onset, and so now we're scrambling to do everything we can just to survive right now. And 70% of Americans, that's a number we are going to, really remember, cannot go 2 weeks without a paycheck. And we're seeing that happen right now. Because of the last 20 to 25 years of craziness in letting this 1% and this 5% attain so much wealth, it's got to come from somebody else. And other people have to be left out to get those numbers. And this group has been left out. And now we're seeing so many very strange things happening. And this great stimulus check of $1,200 for those who get it, and unfortunately college students are going to get very little of that. This is going to come in weeks. It'll be weeks from now. And we're coming close to April. We need paychecks. That is why it's not sustainable. Am I a capitalist? Absolutely. I believe in the free enterprise system. But what we are seeing today, which I have told you from the get-go of this course, is not capitalism. It is crony capitalism. It is a rigged economy, rigged for just the very wealthy. Well, I could go on and on about that, but BFD, it doesn't really matter. We have got to change. This picture a few years ago. These are called death spots. These are states that have literally more people receive more assistance from the government than they do a private paycheck. And we're looking at New York, and we're looking at California, okay? And these are two states right now hit very hard with the coronavirus, just because of their sheer size. These are two of the most populous states. We take California, New York, Texas, and Florida. We may have close to 40% of the entire United States population. So, we have to do something different, my friends. Oh, I know it. I'm just getting so positive right here. Don't leave the lecture, okay? Don't run outside and scream. Not yet, all right? Yes, since the year 2000. Again, this is where things just started really in this millennia going crazy. 9/11 was a crazy day. Bankruptcies, personal bankruptcies, about 20 million since this day. Home foreclosures. Is there a middle class anymore? That was that great group of people that most of us would be technically in if it was the 1980s right now, where you could buy your house, you could pay it off, you could send your children to college, you could have a nice vacation each year, you could have a good retirement, have that good life. Is it around? What has happened? Lots of things on different fronts. I know I could give up shopping, but I'm just not a quitter. Yeah, we have been spending a lot, but some of us have to spend everything right now. 70% of working Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and that is why we're seeing such hard times in just the last couple of weeks, because people have not been able to work, or they've lost their job, they're in the service industry, and their jobs have been furloughed. And so it's tough right now. It's very tough. And if anyone who's in that arena would say, hey, you don't know what tough is like. It's horrible. We've been spending money. We've had a negative savings rate for a long time. It's gotten better, but we've got to do some fundamental shifts in our thinking. We are the world's largest consumer. Okay? I have a feeling things are going to change. We're going to come out of this. We will come out of this pandemic. Rest assured. And we will behave differently. So, what has happened? That dream, even for families who are doing pretty well by most standards, say that I'm just trying to get out of debt. That's my primary goal in life versus build wealth. We've got to change. I threw that information out there for you, my friends, to say, you know what, I need someone to slap me in the face hard and say, hey, what can I start doing now? And I very much wish this would have been taught to me when I was younger and in college and in high school. Very few business courses even go over this. That's why I want to fit at least part of it in this class. And hopefully, I think you would definitely enjoy my full course in personal finance, because it really said it's just about you and money. Again, it is not a theory class of this is what economics looks like. It's how do I save money, build a credit score, get out of debt, etc., etc. And we're going to learn part of that right now. Hey, again, Dave Ramsey says it. Are you going to control your money, or will your money control you? And think about that, because this is not rocket science. I don't need to get into regression analysis and use calculus theory to figure out when I get paid, what should I do? Okay, it's about mainly behavior. In fact, it may be 90% behavior and 10% intellectual. All right, our relationship with money is either positive or negative, and unfortunately, for a majority, and I mean the vast majority of Americans, it's very negative right now. It was negative before this. Right now, it's It's very anxious, a lot of anxiety. So, as we look at it, normally payday may be coming up for some of us, and I will be very happy to see it. In America, again, on a given year that doesn't have the craziness, the the added craziness of what we're going through right now, paydays are great. They're almost like an American holiday, aren't they? We get paid, we go out, we celebrate, maybe celebrate with friends, go out to eat, hit the malls when they're open, hit Golfsmith, hit Bass Pro Shops, Victoria's Secret, Cache, all sorts of fun stores, and we go to purchase the great stuff we want, and of course, a couple days go by, and then different things happen. Yes, I got to pay that rent. Oh, I got another installment for my loan of my car or my tuition. And what was very happy around the middle of the month becomes a little bit more negative. These are the three simple financial vital lessons that we have to learn about money. It is always active. That means it's doing something. It's either earning or it's decreasing. How does it decrease? And you're saying by spending it? Well, okay, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, the less money we have because we're spending it on different things. I got you. Also, inflation. Inflation can attack money and make it not as valuable as it would be in the future. So money is active. It's always doing something. Some of your small sacrifices early in life can really produce big payoffs. And for those of you who are under 25 years old, and a few of you are under 21, you need to listen to this because this could really change your life. And of course, every decision does involve trade-offs. That was one of the first lessons we learned in this business class. There's always that. If I do this, then I do or don't get this. So let's look at a few things. The power of saving money. How can we start saving some? We are the wealthiest economy in the world. We have on a given year, a $22 trillion gross domestic product. Nobody matches that. Nobody comes close to it. You'd have to have the whole European Union, all the European countries together. You have to have China, Brazil, Russia, and India together to even come close to that. And unfortunately, the average family does not have $1,000 in the bank. That's from the U.S. Commerce Department. Maybe $600 in savings. I read in an article not too long ago of the financial insecurities of Americans. If they had to go to an ER emergency room and pay $600 for a copay, they just wouldn't do it. They just said, it's not worth it. I mean, unless I've lost a limb, unless it's terrible, I'm not going to go in. So, Japanese, different culture, always thinking of the future, always thinking of saving. The family saves for each other. They save around 30% of their after-tax income. Their bank accounts have always been very large, again, and they hold on to it. So we can learn a lot from our Japanese culture and friends because it can be done. Can be done. So, how can it be done? How to start saving money. I can put that as an exclamation mark and tell you, or I can say, well, no, how do I do it? I don't know. All right, we've got to have a goal. Since you have finished up Unit 3 and you know the 5 keys of success, what do? We have to plan ahead. Absolutely. How do we start saving some money? We got to have a good goal. We got to have that SMART goal. If I want to say I want to save $20,000, I want to be just like that Japanese family and catch up right now. Well, that would be a good goal. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad goal. It would be an honorable one. But since most Americans don't have $600, they don't have $1,000 in the bank, maybe around 600. Can I save 20 grand? I mean, if I was making 200,000 a year, and then again, my lifestyle was very simple, but maybe. But for most of us, 20 grand is probably a crazy amount to think about. What about $2,000? Okay, all right, that may be better. And again, you know how much I love this book. How many of you bought it? Oh, only 2 people? Come on now. James Clear, Atomic Habits, great way to do personal growth and get your habits going. So we're going to take, again, a page from James Clear, $2,000 a year. That's fantastic. Now, so what do? I wait until December 31st of 2020, and then I say, okay, I am going to put $2,000 into my savings account. Probably not going to happen. It's after Christmas. We're spending our money. The year is gone. How am I going to save it? It's not easy to transfer it from my checking account. Man, I got the whole month of that probably doesn't work. So we got to break things down. I mean, the goal is good. It's probably attainable for a lot of people. Flesh it out. What if I had the system? Remember, your systems are your habits. You never rise to the level of your goals. Okay, you only fall to the level of your system. Well, what if I did $167 a month? 167. That's a lot easier to do than $2,000 at the end of the year. I got it. But what if I waited till, again, the 30th of each month to go ahead and transfer that amount from my debit account to my savings account? For some of you, you've got the discipline. It could work. For many of us, you know what? I'm going to catch that up next month because I didn't do it and I spent the money and I don't want to shame myself. So I'm good. Yeah, things like that. What could we do again? What can we make that habit? Well, the WBS, which is the work breakdown structure, all right, is the system. What if I put in $38.50 a week? Okay, because that turns out to be $167 a month. I'm going to break it down. And if I were to ask you, how many of you have online banking? I would think the majority of you would raise your hands. And right now, you need online banking because you don't want to walk into a bank. So hopefully you do. What if you did this? What if every Monday you created a reoccurring transfer from your debit to your savings account of $38.50 a week? Wow. I mean, that's a few Starbucks right there, okay? I mean, 38.5 divided by 7, that's $5 a day. Is that a lot easier than trying to wait to the end of the year to put the $2,000 in? It's easier than the end of the month to put the 167. And for those of us who have other bills to pay, we know how, every dollar counts. But this is automatic. Every day you do it and you just let it go. At the end of a year, you would have $2,000 in your bank account. Fantastic. At the end of 5 years, you'd have 10 grand. So think of those right now for those of you who are 20, 19, 20, 21. By your time you're 25, 26, 24, you got $10,000 just because you made a debit look like this. It's automatic. That's what, to build a habit, we want to make it simple, easy, and automatic, and not too painful. I started doing this, and in the end of the year, I finally got a good way of saving. It's automatic, and in addition to other savings. We can also start doing this for some of our investment accounts, which I'm going to show you when we get to a quick little section on investments. That'll be a part 3 or 4 series. All right. Well, let's look at it. You're saying, hey, Mr. Saleh, thank you very much, Randy, but, times are tight here. I don't have $38. Okay, all right, I get it. What about $19.50 a week? Okay, $19.50 will get you $1,000 a year. $20 a week, basically, times 50 weeks. But, of course, we have 52 weeks, so you get right up there to do $1,000. In 5 years, you got $5,000. Did you have $5,000 in your bank account 5 years ago? If you did, fantastic. If you didn't, you have a system to do that. You're still saying, you know what? I don't think I can do that. What about $9.50? All right, there's your Starbucks Venti, which nobody brought me during the semester. White chocolate mocha, soy milk, no whipped cream, and 5 extra caramel shots there. That's about what that costs. Every Monday, 5 years, you get $2,500. Did you have $2,500 5 years ago? Little systems. What I like to do is as I do one on Monday, I'll also do every other Wednesday. I can make another transfer of $7, and then because little numbers to me work better. And then every Friday I'll put in 2, and so all of a sudden I've got some at the end of the month like almost $200 put into that account, and it's working very well. So think of a number. We want to at least get in the, we want to at least get in the habit of doing that. So even if it's $5 a week, it will still add up. But better than that, it shows you that you can do it, and you start building the system. And I'm pretty sure you'll start adding to these numbers. Again, you can hit another day on that transfers. It's easy. It's automatic. and you're doing it. That is a great way to really start saving some money with little tiny changes. Those are some remarkable results for you. Why do we want to save money? Let's look at this. Got a couple of brothers. Billy's 19 years old. He actually took my class and said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start saving $2,000 a year. So he did exactly what we just talked about. He put in the $19.50 a week. But he did something different. He put it into an investment account of 12% annual interest return. Now you're saying, whoa, 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 where's that coming from? Well, again, we'll show you. He did it until he's 26 years old, so a $16,000 investment, and he just stopped after that. He didn't touch the money. He put it into a Roth IRA. All right, we'll talk about that later on. And he leaves the money alone until he's 65 years old. Okay? So, $16,000, 12%, did it early. Now he's got a brother, Jimmy. Jimmy said, "Dadgummit, Billy, you always beat me at stuff." Well, I tell you what, I was kind of having, a little good time, and I was didn't even know what I was doing with my money. I was spending it, and I got to show for it. I'm going to do what you did, and he found the same investment. I'm going to be different, though. I'm not stopping. I will go all the way till I'm 65 years old. So he'll put actually $76,000 over that time frame, which is great. Both are very smart. Now, the question is, who did a little bit better? Well, if you go back to 7th grade, and I think they may have introduced the formula of compound interest, we're going to find out. Now, this is a perfect world. No pandemics happen. Nothing bad. The stock market didn't crash. That will happen. But we're just looking at the mathematical numbers as if it was a perfect world. In the perfect world, Billy's investment, $16,000, he started at 19, turned out to be $2,288,000 and 996. That's something, $2.23 million. Man, that is great. Or 2,288,900. Fantastic. You'll take that. Hey, what if we were half wrong? What if there was a mess up and you only got half that amount for 16 grand? You'd take $1,000,001. You bet you would. Jimmy. Now, that's interesting. Now, Jimmy did well. We're not dogging Jimmy at all. He had 1.5 million. And again, with 76,000 investment over his career, you would take $700,000. That would still be a 10 times ratio there. Why did Billy, who invested less, get more? And this is why we want to, if we can, start so young. It's called the rule of doubling. And that rule of doubling is the rule of 72. Let's say your birthday's coming up here and you get a $1,000 gift. Or maybe you are one of those who get the $1,000 stipend from the government. If you have I believe you have to have some sort of an income where you actually pay taxes. You didn't get it all back in the year, something like that. Let's say you get it, or mom and dad just say, "Hey, happy birthday, here's $1,000. Wouldn't that be nice?" And you're 25 to 65 years old. So you put it in there, one-time investment, you never withdraw it. This is that rule of 72, and you'll turn to this a lot, and you'll love it. What you're doing is whatever interest rate you're getting on your investment, divide 72 by that interest rate, and you're going to see how fast money can double. So you put this $1,000 for 40 years in an interest-bearing account of 6%, which would be nice. You would have $10,000 at the age of after 40 years. So 72 divided by 6 is 12. That means every 12 years that thing doubled. So you had 1,000. So you had 2,000 at year 12. You had 4,000 at 24 years. You had 8,000 now at 36, and then by the time of 40, it hit to 10,000. So that's all right. You had 12% interest. This is what you get. Whoa! Wait a second. 10. It didn't double. It increased by multiplication, exponential. 72 divided by 12 is 6. Now that thing is doubling every 6 years. You see how much more money you got? You see what Billy did? Billy got in early. He had an extra double because he invested so early. One more double than his brother Jimmy. Both did great. But this is how you can literally start creating your financial success at a very early age. What if you got 18%? Now you're just looking at me right now. If you could see me, you'd say, ain't no way to get 18%. Well, let's just say you did. Just for the math and the fun of it. 18 divided by 72 divided by 18, 4. That thing is doubling every 4 years. Wow, you get 750. Hey, how many, you got a credit card? Well, you need a credit card. I'm going to show you why you need one throughout this little series here. The credit card rates. If you're paying under 18% for your credit card, then you got a pretty good deal. Yeah, I don't understand it right now because banks are getting 0% interest rates from the Federal Reserve, and yet they're still charging 18 to 27%. None of that really got to the consumer, but they're getting 18%. And so when we stop borrowing so much from the government, that's one way we can start making money. I'm sorry, on your credit card. So, but we will see some rates maybe, how we can start getting some of that. But I think you get the idea. Compound interest is amazing, okay? And the younger we start, the earlier we start, the better it is. So even for those students who are in my generation, does that mean we don't save at all? No, you just keep going for it. You start right now and live a long time, all right? Boom. So here's why we're saving. We need an emergency fund. More than ever, now more than ever, we need an emergency fund. We need to purchase. You know, we can save our money up for purchasing, and we have to build wealth. And I think we've just shown you a little ways right in here. Emergency fund. I think this is the heart of our financial plan. Okay, it is the most important decision. Unexpected events in life will happen. The 2020 was supposed to be the golden age, wasn't it? We were going into a whole new decade, the third decade of this millennium, and what a year it's been so far. Not sure anybody expected what we would be in right now, but boy, an emergency fund really was needed for so many of us. Because you know how many of us have been buying different types of food, trying to get any type of food we can, or cleaning items. So unexpected events will happen. Murphy's Law says anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Absolutely. Anything mechanical will break down. Mr. Murphy was an African-American engineer at the turn of the century. My dad read all of his. He has 98 principles, I think, and my dad, as a former engineer, agreed with every single one. And he said Murphy's Law will always come in our lives. When we least expect it, crap happens to us. So here's what we need. We're going to start looking at a financial plan. We need at least, I would say, $1,000 to $3,000 in the bank, readily available cash as our baby step. First baby step. We need some cash. Hey, has anyone had to have a crown for a broken tooth? You know, I had one and a root canal. It was a great Christmas for me. I think I told you that. I had to have a crown put on, and I had a cavity from back in the day, and so a root canal as well. My copay was like $700. Thank goodness I had an emergency fund. If you didn't have dental insurance, and most people don't because it is expensive, just the crown alone is $1,200. I saw the bill for the total bill for everything. And of course, my dental plan negotiated down, but it would have been over $3,000. And I was very fortunate to pay right about $700 for it. I said, hey, no complaints from me. So your brakes for your car, you know, and I know some of you can do it yourselves, but you know, that's $200 to $400. If you had to have all of them done, it could be close to $1,000 for front and rear brakes, especially if you have a newer car. Books. Well, aren't you glad you didn't have to buy that book in this class? But you know it's at least $100 a class. If you have a science class, it could be $200, $300. So little stuff always comes up. We need an emergency fund. And again, my friends, right now, emergency fund, when people have lost their jobs, a fully funded emergency should be 3 to 6 months of expenses. That way, that could possibly get you from one job to another, or a career change. And so that's going to be bigger. Here we are, little squirrel squirreling away those nuts. If you have an income of 70 grand or less, this is just kind of, I'm ballparking it here. You know, a $7,000 to $10,000 is a fully funded emergency fund plan for you. That means you don't do anything you're not investing your money, you're saving that up, and then you start doing other items in your financial plan. If you have more money, if you have 80 grand, and again, you may want to give this information to your parents. I hope you do. You have a fully funded emergency fund of 10 to 15 grand. This, again, it's not for all the fun stuff we want. It's just for those basic expenses that can get us maybe around 6 months of living until something else comes in, or we can wait out an emergency like we're in now. Wow, that would be such a relief to 70% of Americans right now. So these are goals for us, just like that little squirrel that is harvesting all the nuts and saving them up. We got to take a object lesson from the little ant and the squirrel. Remember the ant and the grasshopper back fable, where the ants basically worked hard all summer long for the winter, and the grasshopper just played around. And when the tough times came, that ant had all his food stored up, and the grasshopper was begging for anything because they hadn't done their little bit of work. What about purchases? We've been told that credit cards, and you do need one, and we'll show you why, are just smart money and just pay it off. What if you saved up and used cash? All right, your cash car, $300 a month for 16 months is $5,000. The average car payment in the United States is $476. That's just the car payment. Then you add insurance, you add gas. Cars are terrible. Well, we love them. We love them dearly. But boy, they're expensive, and they lose money. They depreciate. So instead of hitting 476 or 300 for the rest, for 24, 27 months or 48 months, start doing that now. Put that cash back once you have your emergency fund ready, and buy. You don't have to buy the car twice. That's Dave Ramsey right in there. You don't buy the car twice with all the interest. And more than likely, when you go on a cash sale and you actually have the cash, or you have a cashier's check with you, you're telling the car dealer or the private sale that I can negotiate. You know what? Great. I love the Toyota FJ Cruiser, and let's say that's a 2008 model. They still have a lot of value to it, but it wants $12,000 for it. I got 10.5 right here, and I can give it to you, and you don't have to wait for my credit to go through. That's buying power, all right? Because you're not able to negotiate very much with just credit cards, are we? Cash is very immediate. It's very emotional. When you start paying in cash, you're going to learn all of the presidents on those dollar bills. Who's on the $100 bill? Ben Franklin. Was not a president, should have been. He was Postmaster General and was a great ambassador to the United States when he was the ambassador to France. $50 bill. Ulysses S. Grant. Yes. 20. Andrew Jackson. Excellent. 10. Alexander Hamilton. Again, not a president, but a big patriarch. 5 is the Lincoln, and of course Washington is on the 1. Man, you get to know those dudes, and you don't want to just throw them out as easy when you're paying with cash. When we swipe through, we know there's no emotion. In fact, we get a little bit of a high from it, don't we? Hey, I'm swiping right through, and I'm buying that product. Handing over cash, you don't do it as fast because you want to keep those bills in your pocket. Wealth building. Just showed you why saving money is so important. All right? It's your retirement planning. It's discipline. If we could figure out ways to save a little extra a month, $100 a month, every month at 40 years at 12% interest would build you $1,176,000. Yes, it's in a perfect world, but I think you get the point. How can we start saving $100 a month? Because 70% of Americans are not doing that. Again, we're taking out the top wealth because they're saving tons of money. Just working everyday Americans, how can we start doing that? That's what we got to find out. And again, that's only $20 a week, or 25, 22 when you do 52 weeks. So how can we start doing that? Let's look for options. I'm going to show you options in the class here. Here's a very interesting book. It's an old book. It's called The Millionaire Next Door. It's written by Thomas Stanley. And it was what some say was probably the most comprehensive research done on the accumulation of wealth for a 20-year period. And it was really, looking at people in the 80s through the early 90s. And how they had saved and lived well below their means. The average millionaire, they were from 57 to 64 years old. This was before .com, millionaires came out of the woodwork. They had an average salary of $45,000 a year. Okay, today, let's say that average salary was about $70,000, 70. You don't think a $70,000 income is going to get you $1,000,000. But we just showed you ways how to do it. They purchased an old car. They paid in cash. They rarely had a lot of debt. Their house paid off, $150,000 value during this time, which would make it about a $300,000 value today. But they could have paid a lot more. I mean, they could have been in much bigger neighborhoods and bigger homes. Their emergency fund, they were real conservative people. So they believed that, heck, you know what? I want 25 to 50 grand in cash any given time if something really crazy goes on. Because if I need a new refrigerator or a washer, dryer, or a car, I can just buy it right now, not even blink an eye. Their net worth was somewhere between $1.5 to $3 million. 30 years to build it. A lot of them had a part-time business. They had a service business with their regular job. The idea of the title was you could not recognize them because they weren't all about the show. They weren't showing off their money. They were very just conservative and could have had more, but they were content in what they had. You couldn't recognize them. They were the millionaire next door. But we can learn some lessons from them. And it was that discipline and systematic saving and investing throughout their lives. And again, many of them had their own business or at least had a side business that they did as well. That's why I'm just so keyed up for you to do well with that business model that you guys have. Question, as Dwight Schrute would say, who are the best savers in the United States? Incomes of 10 to 30,000, 40 to 75,000, 80 to 110,000, or 125 to 190,000. Now this was taken again in the height of our economy, not low parts, but the very highest parts. All right. So, what do you think the answer is? Do you think it's well? That's a tough one right there because you're just barely surviving. You would think this one, right? I mean, if you're making 125 to almost 200 grand, you better be saving some money. You got to be socking that away. This one, so it should be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. The answer is 3, or B, $40,000 to $75,000. That's right, the heart of America. They save between almost 7% per year, 7%, of their income. Okay, that's the answer. That's number one. What if I flipped it? Who's the worst saver? What do you think? All right, all right. I'm just going to give it to you. It's got to be A. Oops, no. It was this group. This group had a negative savings group. This group had a positive saving. Again, some of these were on, especially retirees, on very fixed incomes, but an older person knows how to save that money. They do. This was, and I had during the time, my family members, quite a few of them were in this income range, and were spending $250,000 as if they always were going to make that. And unfortunately, for so many people who were making a $200,000 income right in that middle management of America, when they got laid off during the first recession, they didn't have any money. And so home foreclosures, bad stuff. So we do know that we have, in good times, when we're doing well, we tend to spend way more than we need to. We are going to change this, my friends. This is the paradigm shift, all right? So, in a large financial plan, and I've taken the Dave Ramsey courses, and this is from a Dave Ramsey course right in here, just this part right here. $1,000 in emergency fund. I personally, I think you need $3,000 now because it's just, the cost of living is so expensive. Start paying off all your debts, all right, except that house with debt snowball. Now, Larry Burkett invented the debt snowball. We'll look at that in debt. There's your big emergency fund, no doubt about that. However big you need it, from 7 to 20 grand. Then we start investing. Then you can start college funding and all that for your kids. But hey, Andy, I'm not 35 years old yet. I'm into my career. I'm a college student. Well, great. This is what you need to be doing right now then. rat hole up $1,000 to $3,000 in emergency fund. So when something crazy happens, car goes bad, don't go out and buy a brand new one, which your car salesman's going to try to do, and roll that loan into a new loan, and we'll get you going. $1,000 to $3,000. Yes, you know what? We're surviving here. So try to keep as best as possible your debt at a very manageable rate, and we will utilize that debt snowball. Graduate. You are worth money when you graduate. Make sure you graduate with a degree that's going to get you a job, and don't immediately go into that master's program. Okay, find what jobs are out there. You go to that master's program if you have great scholarships, or the bachelor's program when you graduate from Tarrant County College. When you do graduate, come back and get one of our other technical degrees that are doing very well. So, are you going to get some college debt? Well, average says you are. Okay, ruthlessly pay that debt off. Don't let your college loans control the rest of your life. I've talked about that from day one. And in this class, which met in January when we started, seems like 20 years ago, doesn't it? I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, and then you can proceed back to the original financial plan. This is our college years. Okay, we're going to get a clean slate, and then we're going to start right back to where we are. But in order for us to do all of that, all right, we have to start looking at our money that we're making right now. Whether you're making very minimal amounts or you're in a career job or somewhere in between, we have to have a cash flow plan. It does not automatically happen. We don't finish our education, get that job, and things just roll into systematic planning. You have to plan ahead. You have to really want to do this no matter what we're making. So, we're going to have a cash flow plan, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And that will be our part 2 of a mini part series, Financial Planning. Make it a great day.